Hello everyone, and welcome back. Thanks for being here today. We have a brand new story to share with you, so let's dive right in. My name is Russell. When my wife told me she wanted me to leave so she could be with another man, I realized it was time to stop fighting for something she no longer wanted. She craved her freedom, the freedom to live as she pleased, to go wherever she wished, and to be free from any responsibilities. I simply nodded and walked away. But before I explain how everything came to an end, you need to understand where it all began. This wasn't some sudden collapse. It was a slow unraveling that started years earlier, long before either of us realized it. Laurie, my wife, and I didn't just stumble into love. We grew up side by side. Our families were close, and we were constantly in each other's lives. It felt like we had known each other forever, because, in truth, we had. She lived just 3 houses down from mine. If you've ever lived in a small community, you'll know the kind of bond that creates. We officially started dating when I was 18 and she was 16. I had just finished high school and was working part-time while trying to figure out what came next. She was still in her junior year. We were each other's first real love, and at that age, when the future seemed so wide open and full of promise, our connection felt unstoppable. By the time I turned 20, we got married. It might sound young to many, but at the time, it felt completely right. Our hearts were all in. We believed that love by itself could carry us through anything. We were learning, growing, and facing the world together, and there was something truly beautiful about those struggles we shared. Not long after our wedding, we welcomed our first and only child, a baby boy. Becoming parents so young was no small feat, but it was deeply rewarding. He became the center of our universe. We took on whatever jobs we could find, worked tirelessly, and leaned on our families whenever we needed support. Through it all, I never once doubted our love. We were in sync. Our family's constant presence made the tough times a little easier. For a long time, I believed our foundation was rock solid. Those early years were filled with love, purpose, and a clear sense of direction. We didn't have everything we wanted, but we had each other, and for us, that was more than enough. Looking back now, I can say that our marriage had its share of ups and downs. Like any couple, we faced our share of disagreements, but nothing ever felt unmanageable. Overall, life was good. We kept growing, kept learning, kept figuring it out together. Financially, things gradually improved. We weren't wealthy, but we weren't struggling anymore either. What kept us anchored was raising our son, watching him grow, guiding him, and preparing him for life. Those years with him were the best part of our lives. I couldn't picture life any differently. But when our son left for college, the cracks in our marriage, once easy to ignore, suddenly became glaring. For so long, everything had revolved around him. We had promised ourselves that once he was grown, we would turn our attention back to each other, but the truth was, we never really did. It wasn't until the house fell silent that I truly saw how far apart Laurie and I had drifted. Our son hadn't just been our child, he had been the glue that kept us together. And when he left, it became painfully clear that there wasn't much left binding us. I still loved her, deeply. But after so many years of focusing on everything else, trying to revive what we once had felt like trying to gather pieces of something that had been quietly breaking for a long time, I longed for intimacy again. I wanted us to rediscover what it felt like to simply be 2 people in love again. But that didn't seem to be on her mind. Instead of coming home and talking with me like she used to, Laurie started spending more and more time out of the house, always offering some vague excuse. She would stay out late, sometimes without even telling me where she was going. I assumed she was just trying to find herself again, trying to breathe after years of being immersed in family life. But day by day, the distance between us only grew wider. Then one evening, when I walked into the living room, I found her passed out on the couch. Her phone was lying beside her, the screen glowing in the dim room. It looked like she had fallen asleep while using it. As I stepped closer, something on the screen caught my attention. The Tinder app was open. When I picked up the phone to look closer, I saw she had been chatting with several different men, all clearly interested in her. My heart felt like it was crashing in my chest. I stood there, staring at the screen, frozen for a few seconds, not knowing what to do next. I knew I had to confront her. Even though every part of me was hurting, I had to keep calm. This wasn't something I ever thought I'd experience, not with Laurie. We had been together for so long. She was supposed to be the one person I knew better than anyone else. I waited for her to wake up, unsure how to even start the conversation. I just needed her to tell me the truth. I needed her to explain what I was seeing. When she finally stirred awake, I didn't waste a second. I asked, plain and simple, what she was doing on Tinder. She frowned and snapped, "Why are you going through my phone?" I stood there, stunned. "Laurie," I said, my voice low but firm, "you're on a dating app. You're talking to other men. What's going on?" But instead of admitting anything, she got defensive, angry, even. "Why are you snooping around in my stuff, she shot back. "That's my private business." She didn't apologize. She didn't show an ounce of regret. She was furious at me for discovering the truth, not for betraying our marriage. In that moment, it hit me, she didn't care. Not about me. Not about us. I stood there, staring at her, struggling to process what had just unfolded. And despite all of that, I still loved her. I still wanted to fix things. I didn't want to accept that this could be the end. So, over the next few days, I tried. I suggested we go to couples counseling. I wanted to believe we could somehow rebuild what had been broken. But Laurie didn't even acknowledge my suggestion. She didn't even bother to answer. In desperation, I reached out to her mother. I explained everything, how distant Laurie had become, how our marriage felt like it was slipping away. Her mom promised she would talk to her. And I believed she would. But nothing changed. Laurie kept living her life like I didn't exist, and I kept holding on to hope for a miracle that wasn't coming. I knew I couldn't involve our son. He had his own life now, building a career in finance, creating something for himself. The last thing I wanted was to drag him into our mess, to force him to pick a side between his parents. So I kept it all between me and Laurie, burying the heartbreak inside, trying to shield our son from the pain I was carrying. Then, one Thursday evening, something inside me told me to head home early. I didn't text or call Laurie to let her know. I thought it might be a sweet surprise. I pulled into the driveway, feeling an odd sense of nervousness I couldn't explain. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed it. The house smelled different. As I walked into the living room, my eyes landed on 2 wine glasses sitting on the coffee table. I froze, the unease creeping deeper. Before I could even gather my thoughts, Laurie appeared, walking casually from the hallway. She didn't seem shocked to see me. "Oh, you're home early," she said, her voice neutral. I kept my expression calm and replied, "Should I have called first?" Without missing a beat, she looked at me and said, "Wouldn't have made a difference." Then she casually walked across the room, picked up a folder, and handed it to me. Inside were divorce papers, already signed. I just stood there, stunned, holding them in my hands, struggling to make sense of how we had ended up here. Still, I had to ask the question burning inside me, even though I already knew the answer. Who is he? I don't even know why I bothered. She simply shrugged, her expression blank. Does it really matter? There wasn't a trace of guilt in her voice. And just when I thought she couldn't possibly be any colder, she said, "Don't drag this out. Sign the papers and move out. My new man's waiting." I didn't respond. I just turned and walked toward the bedroom, the papers still clenched in my hand, my mind repeating the same question over and over. How did we get here? That night, something inside me knew it was over for good. I fought hard not to break down. After everything Laurie and I had built together, the years, the memories, the sacrifices, this was how it ended. Later that evening, I called my lawyer. Told him everything. Said it was time to move forward and that he would be handling the process. As we worked through dividing up everything, I made the decision to move out. It wasn't long after I left that the rumors started reaching me. Laurie was already seeing a younger guy. Some said the relationship had even started before I moved out. I never asked for the details. I never responded to the whispers. But if I'm being honest, it hurt. Eventually, our son found out about the divorce. I hadn't wanted to tell him. But he started asking questions, and I couldn't lie to him. He spoke to both of us separately. And after hearing both sides, he made his own decision. He told me he loved his mother but couldn't respect the choices she made. He said she didn't just leave the family, she broke it, and the way she handled everything made it even worse. I never asked him to pick sides. But when he told me he was standing with me, it meant more than I could ever explain. After the divorce was finalized, I went through a long, quiet phase. I wasn't interested in dating. Not because I had given up on love, but because I needed time to heal, and I hadn't even realized how deeply broken I was until the constant noise of an unhappy marriage finally faded. I stayed away from relationships. I kept my circle small, limited to a few good female friends, but nothing more. Meanwhile, life didn't exactly unfold the way Laurie probably expected. In just 2 years, she went through 4 different relationships. First was the younger guy. Then a few others closer to her age, men who seemed more stable but were still not looking for anything serious. Each time, it followed the same pattern: hope, then disappointment. From what I heard through mutual friends, none of them wanted the deep, lasting connection Laurie was chasing. It became obvious she was trying to find the kind of stability, trust, and consistency she once had with me. But those things aren't built overnight. They're forged through years of honesty, patience, and commitment, especially during the hard days. And Laurie never understood that. She wanted the reward without the work. While she was stuck chasing a past she had thrown away, I was slowly learning how to live again. Then, just as I was starting to open my heart to someone new, Laurie reached out. Ironically, the woman I had begun growing close to was a widowed friend of Laurie's, someone who had been a quiet, steady presence during my healing. She never pushed. She never tried to fix me. She just listened, and that built a comfort I hadn't felt in years. One morning, I woke up to a message from Laurie. It was short, and I'll admit, it caught me off guard. She apologized. She said she was sorry for how things ended. She didn't exactly ask to reconcile as husband and wife, but it was clear she wanted to rebuild some sort of connection, something more than silence, but less than a full reunion. I thought about it for a long time, and when I finally answered, I kept it respectful. I told her I appreciated her apology, it was long overdue. But I couldn't go back. I had come too far, and reopening that door would only bring more pain. Not long after, she tried reaching out to our son, hoping he could help bridge the gap between us. But he refused. He told her plainly that he couldn't be the go-between in a situation that had wounded me so deeply. He saw firsthand what the divorce had done to me, and he chose not to be a pawn in any emotional tug-of-war. That loyalty meant more to me than he'll ever truly know. By then, I had already begun building something new, something healthier. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And I wasn't about to let the past wreck what little peace I had finally found. It took me a long time to reach a point where I could talk about my past without feeling like it was crushing me. But now, I can say with a clear heart, I've moved on, and I've done it in peace. Eventually, the woman I had reconnected with, the widowed friend of Laurie, became a bigger part of my life. She had been kind to me long before there was ever anything romantic between us. She had been steady when everything else was falling apart. Our relationship started slow, exactly the way it needed to. When Laurie found out who I was dating, she wasn't pleased. Maybe she thought if I moved on, it would be with someone completely outside of her world. But by then, I owed her nothing, not explanations, not apologies. This woman had been more loyal and supportive during my lowest moments than Laurie ever had been in the final years of our marriage. I wasn't searching for someone to replace Laurie. I was searching for someone who made life feel safe again. And she gave me that, without asking for anything in return. As for Laurie, I don't hold hatred in my heart. I truly hope she finds the stability she's been chasing. But it won't be with me. That chapter is closed. I gave everything I had to that marriage. And when it broke, I walked away with my dignity intact. I'm not looking back. My eyes are set on what's ahead, and for the first time in a very long time, I finally feel free.